Action. Okay, great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another podcast, The Asylum, for Total Croatia News. I'm Borna Sor, and with me today is a very special guest. Well, let him introduce himself, because I don't want to be the one, because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. It's going to be Dubrovnik. It's not just going to be Dubrovnik. It's going to be what does it mean to be born in a place like Dubrovnik, where life takes you. So today with us is Mišo. I'm going to call him Mišo, but
of course. Yeah,
please, Mišo.
That's my name. Yeah, I'm Mišo Mihočević from Dubrovnik, obviously. Yes, what it means. Yeah. Okay, let's begin. It means to be born in Dubrovnik.
Yeah, what does it mean? I mean, maybe I'm supposed to be giving a little bit of an extra info. I know that a lot of people from Croatia are very proud of Dubrovnik because the whole world basically is kind of, when they say Croatia, a lot of people just think about Dubrovnik. It's a very specific place in Croatia, not historically, but even today. So being born in a place like this, I think it's a world story to be told, right? Yeah. So you were born in this Dubrovnik family?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and with a bit of a nomadic character. Because my parents were, say, teachers that so they controlled and taught at different schools in the area. So I made lots of kilometers as a very small boy because my parents couldn't always look after me, and so I would be given to a bus driver. With a little suitcase that I will remember for life, of course, a little black suitcase with my little things inside. So I'll be given to a driver, and then I'll be delivered at a point B to somebody who's waiting there by the driver. Now here he is, right? And then I'll spend, I don't know, a week or two at that point B, my grandmother or my aunt or my another aunt, family things. And then the person from point B would put me on another bus, and I'll be delivered at point C. So, but of course...
That was being young in Dubrovnik, having parents as teachers, doing a lot of work.
Yes.
Well, isn't it hard to have parents as teachers, maybe a little bit?
It is, and from different angles it is difficult, because my mother was quite reputed... what in Croatian we say in Europe, actually, pedagogist. And she knew how to handle kids. She understood the psychology of it. And of course, she tried to apply much of it on me.
Which, I mean, you're just one of, and not in a bad way, you're one of 50 kids that day.
Oh my God,
yeah. A very big experience with, I guess.
Well, no kid wants it, actually, to be, rehearsed on, because by psychology, by whatever pedagogy and everything else, the kid should behave this way or something. But one good thing about it is, let me not forget, is that for some longer time, I think, it was impossible for my mother to leave me anywhere because I was actually moving with her. So she would take me to the classrooms, and I learned to count and to write and read, and then both Cyrillic and Latin by the age of 3. So I started reading very early on. So there's a huge,
if you were
immeasurable
Chinese, you would also know Chinese.
I think so. Yeah. There was possible. I come from a family that the books were so important. Everybody was reading. Actually, my parents were sort of competing who will read more books. And at top of that, there was lots of music.
Was there a winner on the end? No.
Oh, no. They were just, of course, sort of kidding. But there were always books around, don't touch it, that's fine. I haven't finished it, and things like that, And also, there was also music. My father was actually my stepfather, but doesn't matter. He's the best father anybody can imagine. He was very, very musical. So there was lots of music always. And of course, I was so lucky to be born there because I was born in such an environment where to go to a concert was normal. I mean, a concert of classical music.
Yeah, so being raised in Dubrovnik, it was a part of heritage. In a sense.
Absolutely, and like to miss something at the theater was a sin. Then, of course, to see anything possible at the summer festival. And well, I'm quite musically talented, although not formally educated, but so I would also sing. I was even a solo in a elementary school choir. And I love the stage very much. Like I like performing and entertaining others, adults especially. I would always stage a sketch of something in our living room or somewhere.
Performance is performance. Do you think performance is something that comes from a family and the surroundings, or do you think it just comes from people wherever they are?
I think first of all, it's so enhanced by if one comes from such a family or is born into such a family, because you, as a small kid, you understand that performing, acting, trying to be somebody else is nothing but normal. Everybody wants to be somebody else. At least for 10 minutes. And when you have, then you want to be somebody else, and you see how it's entertaining. Then, so the entertainment comes on top of it, So and then you invent things. There was stage with the help of my grandfather, who was a violinist, by the way. He made like a small stage, and so us kids were doing. I remember my first big leading role was I was a king in a play that lasted maybe for 10 minutes. I don't know.
Wow, but a king, that's a good start. I started off as a tree in the first place.
Oh my God!
I just had to move. The second play I was a window, but yeah. So king is a good start.
I tell you, yeah, and so eventually. When you and also also the schooling system, although it was socialism, communism, that I'm a sort of biological counter side, and I couldn't stand it ever. But of course, it had good sides, good threads. Like, for instance, it was obligatory with the elementary and with the high school alike to attend the concerts. Otherwise you are not excused, you got a bad grade or something. And schools took children to the theater, and later on you had to write an essay about it, things like that. So that all, all together.
It was considered to be something that everybody should know.
Should know and should see.
No, the reason I'm asking you this, because of course for the viewers, some of you know you, but some of the people who are watching this don't know you, and it's because it's going to lead to something. You at one point became the director of the Dubrovnik Summer Festival. Yeah. So this is so you as a young kid being raised around this art, and not just any art in a setting that is obviously even today, 2018, a very it's considered to be a very classical historical place. So where does this take you? So you're being educated, you're finishing elementary and high school in Dubrovnik, right?
Yes.
So where do you go after
gymnasium? Then I went to the university in Zagreb.
Mm-hmm.
First to study languages. My real wish was to study philosophy, but then something that may be helpful to maybe somebody who sees this. One day I declared officially that I wanted to study philosophy and nothing else. And my father said, okay, of course, you're entitled to study whatever you want. But once when you graduate in philosophy, don't come to me to ask for some money, to go to a movie or something.
Oh, so even in those days, the idea of having a philosophy bachelor were considered to be like
because
a problem.
What can you live on? That was very practical. Actually, it was sobering for me. And then I first enrolled into English and Italian language and literature because I was sure I would qualify because I mastered. I had good knowledge of both by then. because the system was that if you didn't...
I'm sorry for the digression.
Yeah, please.
Do you think it's a normal thing? It's something coming from Dubrovnik?
Well, in Dubrovnik it's not so unusual, actually. I don't say... Well, now it's sort of course, with internet and everything, and of course it's becoming more and more normal for anybody to speak anything, but in those days, because there was no internet, but for instance, for several years, the only thing we could watch was Italian TV, because the Croatian or the Yugoslav television could not be reached there in Dubrovnik. So we were watching Italian TV, and that's why the influence of the Italian music is so strong all along the coast, actually.
Yeah, Mediterranean. It's called Mediterranean, but it's a lot of Italian.
We know all the most famous Italian singers of the time. Ornella Vanoni, L'Appuntamento, everybody knows that, for instance, which to the other parts of Croatia were more or less unknown. So we actually lived in this different kind of environment in that sense. And of course, tourism being always there, it was very normal to speak some language, some other language.
I mean, since just from the beginning, I mean, now today Dubrovnik is crowded.
It's whirling, overcrowded.
Right, but when you were, overcrowded. But we can come back to that.
Yeah,
but
sure.
But back in the years when you were growing up,
yes,
there were still tourists. It was not overcrowded.
Oh my God, yeah, there were many. Of course, hotels were fewer, all the facilities were fewer, the transportation was different and weaker, much weaker than today.
No cruise ships.
No cruise ships, or very, very seldom. And there was always an event. We would always go and oh my God, this. But still, there were many, and also one part of my family was in Austria and from Austria, so they would come, speak German. It was totally normal, of course, to speak any language. That's how I got my first job at the reception.
Oh, yeah, the traditional, typical starter job.
Because I was 14, I think, and because I could really speak both English and Italian by then. Some German, that's faded now, unfortunately, although I can read, but a little bit of French. And so this guy was a friend of my father's. Was absolutely besides himself with happiness that he could have somebody who would be there, to help also with suitcases, bellboy actually, to hand out the keys. We were giving keys to the room keys, and because of the languages, owing to and actually, I think more or less everything I've achieved in my life was because I could communicate.
Communication. Yeah. So, that hotel still exists?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, so it does. So it is a part, so it's something that you could walk next to it and remember how it all kind of started.
Oh my God, I always do.
You, but like
I always do, because
starting to build up slowly and slowly.
Well, let me tell you, my father was of those honest people. Very, very just, very righteous, and we were doing well. I mean, as an average family, and I was a good swimmer, and then I had to stop, and I didn't know how to go to the beach, and do what you do when you come to the beach, because I was used to, swim, and so I asked my father to help me find a summer job, just for 2 months to do something, and he refused, because he said that there are very many other children that need job, need money, and that I didn't need it that much or something. And then I actually cheated on him while going to the beach, or to a beach. I was passing by this hotel, and I remembered that the manager of the hotel was my father's very, very, very close friend. And I actually misused this friendship. I just went in, the man happened to be there, and I said, Ante was his name. I said, Ante, my father sends me if you can, find me some job. He said, oh yeah, and I was engaged immediately. With the towel, beach towel under my arm, and now I don't want to tell you what happened when I came home and declared, my God, my father was furious.
Why do you think he didn't approve something like that? What was his biggest
Because
problem?
he had told me that there were other children that need work to make some money, and that I didn't, and I just breached that.
Unbelievable. It wasn't like he was afraid that you're going to do bad. No, he was just thinking about, you don't need this.
Just for the principle, the social principle of him, because he was so socially aware, actually. Although we didn't have any millions, I mean, they had like 2 good salaries, and my grandmother helped, but he thought that, there are those needy ones who need really, that are poor.
They should have a chance.
Yeah, so, and I'm glad actually, I was proud that I've always been a bit, self-willed, and that I proved there, that inborn rebellion against your parents, that I could show them that they cannot manipulate me anymore, that I can do what I want,
I mean, the best thing is to get a job.
Yes, and I did get a job.
To get a job.
And I really made good money, because I remember I started getting tips. And I was always, I had always money in my pockets. When you're 14, 15, it's so important. It makes you, then you take some girls for a drink or an ice cream, and you're the main guy in the, in the band. So,
were people even back then when you started working, were they surprised when they would come to Dubrovnik and see Dubrovnik? If you remember, for tourists back then, in a sense. Today, everybody in the world probably knows when they're coming to Dubrovnik how Dubrovnik looks like. It's on the movies, shows, series. But back then, I guess a lot of people would come maybe not knowing what they would see.
Well, many, of course, that people then would travel by postcards, having seen a postcard, or because there were no other means, actually, or something in the newspaper. But so many people, of course, wanted to see Dubrovnik because of its fame that has existed for so many centuries, actually, and because they're curious to see what is that place about, even despite the fact that it fell behind the steel curtain and remained to be in a communist country. But it didn't lose much. Actually, there's very wise politics of the communists.
It's the only Mediterranean city that was under socialism, when you think about it, right? When you think about tourist-wise, of all the Mediterranean
all the rest, I think so. Yeah,
it's a very interesting combination.
Yeah,
yes.
I think so. Yeah.
So, but let's go.
It has retained all its values. It doesn't.
It didn't change. It wasn't rebuilt and such.
It's because first of all, it's preserved, fortunately, and owing to some people that were aware of how important it is to preserve everything that's possible, everything original. Even there was this legendary woman by the name of Dubravka Beritic who spent her actually working career at the court because she was sued by people that wanted to do this, to rebuild this corner of the house, this gable or something, and she just wouldn't let them, things like that. So owing to some people,
it's amazing.
Yeah, she's the legendary
local activism,
actually savior of Dubrovnik, because after 1945, when all these hillbillies from the mountains became head of party organizations and the ones, actually decision makers, who just didn't have the civilizational level that could accept what an old house means. For them, an old house meant something bad. It has to be destroyed.
This is a topic that is very interesting because I guess we're going to come back to that a little bit later. It's also connected with this overcrowded tourism as well.
Yeah, now it's the other way around.
The other way around. Yeah. Before they didn't understand, and now they understand well, too much in a sense. Sometimes
exactly
they're exploiting now something that was before considered to be old, maybe supposed to be ruined, but now it's interesting. But let's move a little bit to that, because I'm interested. So you finished your education and everything, but before we start our story that you become the director of Dubrovnik Summer Festival.
Took some time, Took some time until
What was happening just before that, right?
Just to say that at the festival I began as an errand boy in the press office. And then again the languages. I was 15, 16, something. And I was soon assumed to the secretariat. And then I think the very next year, I was still in high school, this general secretary, otherwise the most beautiful woman in the world, she was considered to be, an exceptional woman. She died a couple of years ago at the age of 94. She had all the confidence in me, and she started sending me to the airport to meet the artists. So, as a very young boy of 17, I started meeting all these big names.
I just remind myself.
Yeah.
Maybe some people don't know, but Dubrovnik Summer Festival is a very old.
It's the oldest, one of the oldest in the world. Yeah. It's 68 years old now, and it has really seen, I mean, almost, so to speak, all the best that arts have produced.
Shows, concerts.
Especially in those years, there were like biggest names were coming to Dubrovnik, including one common place in jazz like Dizzy Gillespie.
Top of the top.
And I was. By the way, I always joke when I think of it how I jokingly say, of course, that I had a concert with Dizzy Gillespie, and the thing is that his agent or manager wanted him to be announced, like, to the public and to the audience, and so there was, I don't know how they decided that I would do that. So actually I came on stage and performed before Dizzy Gillespie, which was my
band.
And I remember
the performance, amazing.
Yeah, and I remember my line to this very day, which was very complicated, and it went, "Ladies and gentlemen, the American ambassador of jazz, Dizzy Gillespie." I was, I don't know, 20 maybe.
Do you think it was probably the first time a lot of people heard jazz here?
Well, not the first, but not that many, not that much.
But it meant a lot. I mean, for some people, probably were incredibly surprised he came here.
Yes, but he was a living legend, so he attracted everything. And of course, there were all those, the best pianists, best violinists, best this, that. Even, for instance, the legendary writer, Eugene Ionesco was in Dubrovnik, and I was allocated to him and his family to be with them. So I was 21 at most. I spent 3 days with the Ionesco family, and it's all Dubrovnik, you see. I mean, I always say, and I'm so grateful. Had I not been born there, I don't know. Maybe I'll make some cottage cheese in a hill or something. A producer of milk or something. Yeah, God knows, but it's all to Dubrovnik. And then when you go, then of course, then you accompany those big guys and girls to the rehearsal, then you stay at the rehearsal and you listen to wonderful music. Of course, I mean, it gets inside you.
Do you remember something about Ionesco? Something you remember
about Ionesco?
It might be
not really.
He was a person looking at all this, worldwide known artists.
I must say that whatever image we can have about Ionesco as an author, in his private life, it was a family of 3, him, his wife, and their daughter, and they were all very short. And very, very, very quiet and timid. So there is really nothing that I can sort of remember.
Quite the opposite.
They were always there when you suggest, like, would you like to go to, I don't know, to the beach? and they would say, "Oh no, thank you." And they would say, "Okay, would you like to do this?" They would say, "No, thank you." "Oh yes, please." And it was very, very humble, actually. People, well, like me, I was full of power, force, energy, young, energetic.
Yeah,
let's go there.
Yeah, people are Dubrovnik. They're also very, very full of energy. They're loud people as well. So maybe this was something that was. They were relaxed. I mean, I guess you come to the Adriatic Sea coast, you start relaxing on the seaside. Everybody's trying to help you.
Yeah, of course. No,
I can just be silent and relax. I don't have to.
Maybe we are energetic by default because there is so much of sunshine. But I think that actually the clue is that we are inspired by people. People inspire energy in us. When somebody comes to visit you, then you're inspired.
Yes, it makes sense. So there's also this kind of a compliment in a way.
Of course.
Of there's a planet Earth. There's a lot of places on it. Absolutely. Somebody decides to come to your hometown and he feels welcome. Yeah, it gives a lot of energy. Right?
It's you're inspired. You want to do things to show off if you can.
Yeah,
right.
We like to show off. All Croatians like to show off a little bit. I mean, I always laugh when I see like Ludbreg that claims it's the center of
the world.
Right? Of the world. Right?
I think,
it's ridiculous.
There's a sign in the ground. Yeah.
Nobody believes it, but still, everybody likes to be a show off.
Absolutely. Center of something.
Yeah.
To be a center of something. Yes.
Yeah, but Dubrovnik, on the other hand, is not this. It's not a fake center of something.
Yeah.
In the cultural Croatian sense, it's an ancient republic with the culture that is actually
because there's history behind it. Yeah. Well, for instance, if you build such a city now, it should not be impossible to make a makeshift of it. So it wouldn't be what it is because it was built and sedimented over the centuries and. That stone that it's made of has inspired so much of energy of so many people that walked the streets, and its stone is full of energy. And
if I remember correctly, the walls, the stones are not just that. They were type of attacks for the traders.
No, it was after an earthquake that in the big restoration it was actually an entrance fee.
Fee.
So if you wanted to come to town, then you had to bring a peck of stone along. There was
they could rebuild
that's how they were restored. Yeah.
Interesting. So it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's also a symbol of how the old Dubrovnik Republic realized we don't have a lot of stone, but we can actually. Now today's a joke. It's it's a usual joke. You want to buy a piece of stone. It sounds almost like something. Nobody would. Why would I buy a piece of stone? It was an entry fee. Very interesting.
Precious then, because
very eco, very green.
Because
very green
stone meant security, safety. That's why the wall meant safety. It was so important. And it was the only building material actually, as it is down on the rocky coast.
Yeah.
But they had some solutions that have really, the Dubrovnik diplomacy is studied at quite a number of colleges around the world now, because they had some solutions like nobody could ever think of. One, for instance, we were talking earlier about migration, blah blah. And I mentioned how after the Second World War, when these hillbillies came as communist chiefs, or chieftains rather, during the Republic of Dubrovnik, which lasted for about 600 years roughly, until Napoleon abolished it in 1806, if you were lucky enough to get a permission to build a house in town or in the area around the wall, then you were not allowed to have a kitchen in your house for 1 year, because you were supposed to be humble, to make friends with your neighbors, to learn how they live, and to amalgamate with them, to amalgamate with the way of living, not to come and impose your your way of living, your habits, your whatever. You had to
Republic was very
just
strict about
blend with the society.
I guess it was also connected with the fact that you need to know your neighbors. You can't live isolated from your neighbors. It's not
and you were forced to be friends because you depended on them. Because you were not allowed to cook in your house.
Yeah, so you needed them help first.
Absolutely.
First, you need to realize you need to live together with your neighbors.
In other words, you had to be friends.
But that's interesting. So there's so many things in Dubrovnik history we can't talk about it. And
oh my God, it'll take
it's hundreds of years. Makes sense. But I'm really interested because you have all this knowledge, and slowly you're meeting this world famous artists.
Yeah.
And how do you become and tell me a little bit about this, being a director of the Dubrovnik Summer Festival? That's very interesting because it's still up until today it's considered, I guess, the most prestigious summer festival here. Yeah.
Well, I think it was actually a logical trajectory. I started as an errand boy, meeting all those people, blah blah blah. Attending, being present at so many rehearsals, I can't know the number of, possibly, and of course learning the secrets of the trade, those things behind the stage. There are laws that are, of course, like in every trade, unwritten and that can be learned only through experience. So gradually, from an errand boy in the press office, I was like climbing up, and eventually,
more experience.
And then because then you master like production of an opera. Of course, you can learn about it at school, at art academies and things. But if you come to that through practice, live practice, and especially in a non-typical environment or stage, because all the things in Dubrovnik at the Dubrovnik Festival were happening in the open, meaning in a square.
Yeah,
so you
the
have
city is the stage.
Put up an opera in a square where people pass through, in a very living and live environment. And then when you learn how to set up the orchestra, how you organize rehearsals before they can come to the stage, to be on stage, all the quite long process and complicated, how the soloists have their rehearsals together, individual, apart, together with, I don't know, part of the orchestra if possible, if not. When you learn that through practice, then you can produce any opera in the world, anywhere in the world. Yeah, and that's how, I'm just taking an example because I love music, but you can produce any theater play, any musical, anything.
But it's specific, right, in Dubrovnik, because you have to, on one hand, it's amazing scenery around you. The old walls, the old buildings, the old churches, and everything plays into this magic when you're performing there. On the other hand, you have to know the acoustics, because it's not easy. It can't be easy to deal with the living city being a stage, right?
Well, I'm lucky in that because people before me, from the founders of the festival, of course, had already examined all these features like acoustics, visibility, and things like that. So, and then of course, working actually in the office as well. Well, it's a bar. Sorry, guys. You also learn about those things, about some paperwork, which is a part.
Yeah, how to talk.
The accountant. How do you cannot just take an invoice and throw it away. And so eventually, yes. And but right before our war in the 90s, I was the principal program manager. And I the festival was on its way down as the country, the system, the social situation was going downhill.
But I guess still the rest of the world in those years didn't really
realize what was
didn't realize, so they would still come. And what do you remember? What was the nicest thing?
Perestroika happened quite, I think, abruptly and had its consequences quite quickly. I don't know, no secret services could have and didn't predict what would happen, and what their forecasts were wrong in many situations, like with Yugoslavia, which is the most drastic of examples. But anyhow, in those late 80s, I knew that festival needed something to, come back on the map of the European festival or world's festivals. So, for instance, I managed to get the Royal National Theatre of London with Daniel Day-Lewis as Hamlet.
I didn't even know that.
Yes, in
Daniel Day-Lewis.
1989, I think.
Was it Dubrovnik performing Hamlet?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I just happened to have something.
That's what started his greater career. He wouldn't have done it if he didn't come to Dubrovnik.
Owing to me,
he was blessed by brave Orlando.
Yeah, well, the truth is that soon after they went back to London to their huge stage, he quit because
it wasn't good enough
our stage.
Yeah,
because our stage on this St. Lawrence Fortress is really the most Hamletian stage in the world. It's known as such.
For a depressed prince, it's a perfect place.
Absolutely. And so, for instance, the number one in the world, Montserrat Caballé, who became my excellent friend, and names like that. So the festival really went up, and but again, it's all because of the communication. Because I could read a contract in English. I don't know how to say.
It's very interesting because the reason we're doing this podcast in English as well, because we can talk in Croatian if we wanted to. But it is because of this idea that we can, that there's this communication is so necessary. People should know. Yeah.
We are a small nation, and while on one hand we have to, by all means, preserve and care about our language, because your language is your main identity. Inasmuch do we have to communicate with the world, and for that we must be able to speak other languages, to communicate in other languages, because we cannot live alone. We cannot live isolated. Politics tried to isolate us because of some very personal interests, but we must not allow it, and especially not through arts. Arts have no borders, and art is the smile of mankind, and we must accept and use that smile to be happy. Otherwise, what are we, a depressed little nation, encased inside and broiled inside its own juices of, some literature, some music, something. We must be part of the world, which we have always been, and especially, of course, again, Dubrovnik, my beloved.
Well, the summer festival is one of those things that is trying to they always want to bring people together. So the place would be, and the musical concerts were, I guess, universal language
everything,
music.
Ballet,
but the plays were in English and different languages.
Oh yes, of course.
There was a lot of different languages, right? How do you deal with something like that? Back in those days, it was probably technically kind of hard to put some sort of subtitles. Today they actually use it, right?
Subtitles.
So back in the day,
thought of subtitles then?
If it's an English play in Dubrovnik, you have to know English. If it's an Italian play, you have to know.
But then at the end of the world, really, oh my God, arts knows of no language, actually. I remember watching Peer Gynt in Sweden, in Stockholm, in Swedish. I don't know a word of Swedish. I understood everything, more or less. So art has no borders in every which way.
It's easier to cross.
And it's the only arts actually that cross the political messages or something else. They cannot cross because they are always very personal and very very, very, how to say, foxy, and art. When art is sincere, then it can cross any sea, any mountain, right? Politics, I have never met a sincere politician. Have you?
Yeah. I mean, I hope. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but what you mentioned, it's very interesting because I think that the if art crosses, then as well as culture as such as history and heritage also crosses.
Yes.
And in that sense, you're in Dubrovnik, and 90s come, and there's war, and now you're in position that slowly you're getting more and more involved with the defense of Dubrovnik. At that point, you're not just in Dubrovnik. You're in Rome, if I'm not mistaken, working not just.
No. I was in Dubrovnik.
Oh, you were in Dubrovnik.
Yeah, I was already there.
But you had also a job. I mean, we don't have to go deeper into that.
I was this programming manager of the festival then.
Yeah. But on the other hand, there's this movie story happening on the other side because you're a model already.
Yes, I was a fashion model before, but it was much before.
It was before you were younger.
10 years earlier or something.
10 years. So you're a model, and the story says you got picked up on the street by
Yes, I was like, we would say, scouted.
You were scouted.
Yeah, because I looked well, and that's not my merit. I mean.
No, I know, but it's. I want to ask you one thing about it. Do you think it's? I've been hearing that also my uncle have been casted in a couple of Italian movies back in the days.
Nice.
And he said that they always loved to cast people from the Dalmatian coast
Yes.
and everything
Yes.
because of the tallness and the way that they look.
Yes.
So you were
True.
so you were found out. It's this very interesting thing, and you're traveling at that point the world. You're having business happening.
Oh my
as
God!
well in
Yeah,
Rome.
and traveling the right way. With, I mean, airplanes, good hotels.
Great, and so it's also connected with the fact that you're a part of this city that was historically connected with heritage with other countries.
Yeah, because
it's not a weird thing for somebody to Dubrovnik to go work somewhere else.
But once again, okay, I was spotted because of my looks, and that has nothing to do with me. But what has to do with it is, again, the communication that I had.
Yeah, so you were communicating, having friends, but let's say what I was trying to point out is that 90s are coming, and you're this person of the world in that sense. You're having
I hope so. Yeah, I like to think so.
And working outside of the borders and everything.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I lived in Germany and everywhere else, in Italy for 7 years. So go on.
No, I mean, tell me. It's a very interesting story, right?
Well, I sometimes surprise myself with my memories because there's so much I have forgotten. But yeah, I've lived everywhere. I don't know, met 5 million people of all trades from all corners. I used to get drunk at harbors with unknown people and learn a lot about life. Oh my God, I did all kinds of things. Yeah, I used to get drunk. I used to have good time everywhere.
Used to?
Yeah, I used to. Yeah, can I have another beer, please?
We're gonna figure it out.
Can I have another beer? No kidding. If possible. Okay, later. What was it? Yeah. Okay. My God. War is something that.
Because I mean, you were not raised to be a soldier.
Oh my God, no!
You're coming from this cultural background.
On the total contrary.
Educational parents and everything, and this is happening. And now, I don't really want to go into we don't really want to go into the big war, but you're in Dubrovnik, and Dubrovnik is specific.
Yes.
Because even right now in 2018, the whole world is thinking about how war destroys national heritage, specifically cultural heritage of a UNESCO protected site, monument,
heritage.
Right? And Dubrovnik was that. Right.
Exactly.
So war is starting, and you have this city museum in a way, basically.
Yeah. It is the largest museum in the open in the world. Well, let me just one little thing is. I mean, you said I was not raised in that manner. Of course not. I was raised in totally opposite manner, and very personally, I always disliked uniforms. postman, and the people that were wearing the same things. Because that was my main
in the sense of
my main dispute about socialism or communism has always been how the hell can we all be equal? Let's take a mirror and let's look at the mirror together, you and me, how equal we are. That was a main problem, has been always. The war happened, and
you get involved.
I get involved from
the start.
I volunteered. I was not invited by anybody. I volunteered because there was I heard on the local radio that there was some monitoring mission, and the city had been, actually not the city itself, the hill above, had been bombarded that morning, and also the electricity station behind the city, so the city had no electricity. Obviously the situation was getting very, very, very serious. And I thought, oh my God, maybe, they need an interpreter. And I just sat on my beautiful Vespa and just went down to the city hall. And they said, wow.
So again, this communication, it starts with this idea.
Again, with communication.
We need to talk. People need to understand.
So I come there and said to the mayor, I'm here if you need interpreting, I hope you do. He said, oh my God, send Blaze sends you in person. Because of course, that's such a chaos. Nobody could thought of, interpreting. They really thought about survival, how to...
So one question. Saint Blaise is something you will not hear that often, but it's the patron saint of Dubrovnik.
Yeah, right? Ever since 972, so you count 1,000 and something years. Every year, February the 3rd, the huge celebrations for 1,000.
February the 3rd.
Come, because it's beautiful. It's very special festive days. Very many beautiful things happening then. February 3, so the beginning of February. We were at war, and communication again. And there were these three guys in white. I don't know who they were, what is the mission, nothing. And then I was asked to stay with them at their disposal if they needed anything. And a week later, I was asked to go with them to the Serbian command in Montenegro to broker a first local meeting, and that was it. I just went in my, tennis shoes.
Slowly.
I got involved more and more
in defense.
Yeah.
And now, what interests me here is this. We all talk about how it is horrible when we see around the world this World Heritage, just ancient monuments, wherever they are, being destroyed.
Like Petra in Syria.
And
so on,
so on.
Unfortunately,
the Buddha statues,
so on,
everywhere, Unfortunately, almost everywhere where the big war is happening on the planet, there is some sort of destruction of something that we hold dear. Something that we as United Nations as institutions, but I guess the majority of the planet considers to be something of, their heritage as well.
Yeah.
How do you stop that? You were on the ground, so you need to send this message to the world saying, this isn't about just us, about this war on the Balkans in a sense of Croatian independence. This is actually that plus the fact this is something that belongs to the world. You have to stop it immediately. The bombs are falling on this, as you said, city museum. So is that incredible? I don't want to say that it's more frustrating than people dying, because it's not. But in the sense of does one feel surprised when the world is not reacting in time? It's
oh my God, surprised and disappointed, depressed, helpless. Useless, anything that you want of that sort. You're trying to, by myself, and not only me, but actually, the whole world stood up when the first shells hit the old city, the monument. But because nobody actually could maybe imagine that at the end of the 20th century, somebody would try to destroy such a monument in Europe. we have these maybe images of those wild people somewhere else, but in Europe, certainly not. And the Serbs obviously passed over too many limits. That in a way, as they say, every evil for something good. That I know, not that I think, I know that accelerated the recognition of Croatia. Because the tragedy of Dubrovnik
helped a lot.
Unfortunately and unjustly, because Vukovar paid so incomparably much. And my heart is also in Vukovar, by the way, always been. But it's Dubrovnik that actually really raised this question of this war.
It was an international name.
Yeah.
It still is. It's an
people
international
could associate
symbol,
with,
yes.
and that everybody could realize. They could see the clips and everything, and they could really say, "Oh my God, what is this now? Let's stop this." So, okay. Oh God, in the war, I also doing what I did. I was what I didn't know existed otherwise, because I had no clue about the army. The so-called liaison officer. Oh God, you learn so many things, and you start understand how this process goes. What is this political side? Every war is political thing. I mean, it's not peoples that start war. It's politicians that start every war. So every war is a political thing, and politics works differently from the army on the ground. Politics is much slower than the army on the ground, because every army reacts upon command immediately. Yeah. Political solutions are reached in a slower way and to take more time. And so it must
be very hard, back in the day when the bombs were falling on the Dubrovnik.
Yes, and there was no echo from anywhere.
You're waiting for political decisions to happen.
Somebody invisible up there in Belgrade or Zagreb or, I don't know, New York or Brussels or London to say, come on, guys, stop this.
Stop it, yes.
But then you see, in the meantime, you see, like we had no electricity and running water for 3 months. Dubrovnik was really like a concentration camp.
You mean
in the open?
In the sense that it was closed?
Yeah, because we were blocked, sieged from air, sea and land. Just sealed, and that was it. So that was one of the biggest crimes of the 20th century.
So, but this story ends in a positive way, let's say.
Every evil for some good.
Yeah, and it's preserved. But now, when you enter Dubrovnik, on the gates, entering gates, there's a. I saw it's a map of where the bombs were falling.
Landed, yeah.
And I think it's usually my generation and people of my generation, we don't want to talk about war that much. We think it's a dark subject.
I'm glad you don't. Yeah. You shouldn't.
But to see
that map, you must not be burdened by wars.
But I think that map it's a good thing, not because it needs to have a name. It needs to be reminded. Every tourist needs to be reminded how fragile history is. It doesn't matter where it is.
True.
And this idea that we travel around the world and we see other places that are also very ancient, and you don't think how easy it can be destroyed.
Just like any life can go. I was not well several months ago, and I realized, oh my God, I can really, go up there in a second, and then you become aware of many other things, like that thing with Dubrovnik in the war. Really showed how fragile actually man is.
Human.
Because without your roots, you're a tree without the roots. So how can you exist? I mean, your branches and twigs go dry and wilt.
Now I want to ask you a little bit, just because you went up in the ranks of military. This is not something you don't seem like the type, a lot of stuff, and we're going to come back to that later. What you do in life is not connected with the military.
Not at all.
But we had a war, and you went all up into the rank of pukovnik, which is a colonel in English, right? So colonel. That's a lot. That's a high rank.
Oh my God, yes. But it's because in the war you progress 25 times faster than in the normal, peaceful situation times, because you do things and you have to. It's very logical. I don't find it Oh my God, I don't think about it anything at all. It's just the situation that made me eventually a colonel. I don't feel like one.
No, but it's interesting the way you're humble. You don't hear a lot of people say, I don't know, I mean, probably besides Colonel Sanders, who's making food, everybody else who's a colonel is like, you don't become a colonel like that. Of course. So you're being too humble, I guess.
You know, in a real military world, how to say, obviously when you say you're a colonel, you are absolutely respected, and you know, but I never took it to my heart, and because I was not there to become a colonel, to become a general, to become anything. I was there to try to help, to do what I could to save my city and then also my country with that. I didn't think of any career, you know, like, oh my God, I'm going to be military, especially. No, I'm not a military, my mind is not, my mental cluster is not that sort. But when you have such a sophisticated aim in front of you that comes from your bones, then you take it as, okay, what am I, a colonel? Okay, you know, I didn't really think, because I didn't want any military career at all, but I just wanted to do what I could to engage all of myself, which I really did, 24 hours a day, to defend, and in other words, to save this beautiful, unique pearl that belongs to humanity.
Yeah, the pearl of Adria.
The pearl that belongs to humanity, not only to me.
But the story doesn't end there, because after the war, you're not in the military anymore.
No.
You have other stuff to do, but still, we live in a country that, when it comes to certain aspects of the war, we don't want to let it go. So something happens. You give away your rank. Okay. Why?
And all the decorations and everything, because when you know, for the first couple of years, none of us, I dare say, that were, first of all, secluded from the rest of the world for those 8 months from the world, because we're under then a larger siege later. When we didn't know what was going on, we were just, you know, fighting for our town, for our country, you know, to be free, to get liberated from those villains. And then eventually, you know, one starts finding out how, you know, there's this guy who's a colonel, this guy's something. They had never seen the war. I mean, so if
politics were giving away,
it's political, whatever, political awards to political leaders, adept people, and so once I was pissed off, and
do you think that makes a lot of war veterans angry when something like that happens?
My God, very many, because I don't know if like we were 100 of the Croatian army, 99 went there with full heart and no expectations. And then you come out poorer than before, because, for instance, to some of my good friends, I know a factory changed ownership or got a new owner who didn't want those who were in the war because they had been away, and he just didn't want them back, so they were also jobless. So when you see all those injustices, terrible injustices, and the government or political treatment of so many real, straightforward, righteous people, then of course, I mean, the war did not end actually. You must rebel. It's your duty now to try to contribute to your society to be better. And well, when I found out that this former Prime Minister was also a colonel of the same sort, then I really said no. It means we were in some different countries, in some different armies. I don't know, we fought for different things.
No, but it makes sense. But do you think, and we don't have to go into the politics, but this is it's a hurtful subject, I guess, to many people. This idea that you go and you have this horrible experience, but you give so much. I mean, you risk your lives, you risk your mind, you risk everything.
And many lost that.
Yeah, and then years later, there are people who are like parasites on this success. I mean, even if you don't want to celebrate war because war is destruction, you hate the fact that they force you, that you have to think about it. Do you sometimes think that the equal amount of pressure that is put on Croatian war veterans comes from the inside as well? That does not come from...
Little from inside, no.
Yeah, it doesn't come from enemies outside.
No,
it comes from this... Yeah.
It comes from those ruthless creatures, I wouldn't call them humans, that actually got rich while... War profiteers, while mothers were losing their sons and were visiting their graves. So... there was their propaganda to, like throw anything, black ink on us veterans in order for them to appear, and to be intangible and, far away because there's something different. We were the morons and, I don't know, scoundrels.
Let's talk open just directly a little bit about it.
Of course.
The Prime Minister, who's now being prosecuted in Croatia, he was given the rank of colonel.
Colonel, yeah.
He was never in war.
Colonel in reserve, yeah.
No, he was never in war. He's being prosecuted for a dozen different types of crimes and war profiteering as well right now.
Yeah, all sorts of crime. So how can I have the same rank? We were obviously in a different army. He was fighting for his money. And to steal as much as he can, while I was fighting to preserve as much as I can.
Do you think it's something we can fix, but it's going to take time?
It will take time because the situation in Croatia is very complex. It's not like this Serbian problem is forever. They just covet Croatia as their own land, and they still do.
Yes.
Yeah, but those were the main political...
Territorially, but I mean, like...
like
dealing with corruption in the sense that we were talking about, this fake ranking for political...
I think that time is only to come, unfortunately, after like almost 30 years. Because there is a change of generations, change of politics.
New generation will not even realize who...
Yes.
But a lot of good people will be forgotten in that sense. A lot of people who...
Well, good people are usually forgotten. That's not going to be an exception. Good people are forgotten. Bad guys, like everybody remembers Al Capone.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There's so many wonderful people.
Because we're not running out of time, but I wanted a little bit just to skip. So you do this, right? You're done with it. You made your stand, your position, yes. But you're not done with Dubrovnik because you're bringing the world to Dubrovnik. The war is over. You're done with that, and you're ready for life and not for bad stuff. You're ready for Croatia to be open to the world. Yes. So you bring to Dubrovnik, you bring the most, the most famous prince in the world and the most richest person in the world, right?
Well, that happened. Yeah, it just happened.
So bad times over. What is happening? How does that happen? So Prince Charles of the United Kingdom and Bill Gates, among other people.
Yeah, there were others.
Yeah, but this is the biggest stars, let's say. So what is happening? How do you bring them to the
that just for the awareness of everybody, if you're selected to host such persons, it means you'd gone through all the checkups, behind the stage.
High security.
Because security must be checked first. So
maybe you're some Republican ready to assassinate the prince.
Their job is so paranoid by default. The security people, they see enemies everywhere. He may have a fly in his pocket that will poison the guy.
You were a Croatian colonel. You never know. Highly trained.
Yeah.
You don't know.
But it's incredible amounts of paranoia those people have by default, by their trade. It's that job. I mean, so yeah, obviously I was a safe person. So for Bill Gates, I had to sign a contract that actually I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who the person was until the moment that they disembarked from small shuttle from a yacht.
So basically they contacted you, but they were like, somebody's coming.
I had a contract for money, time, everything, but there was no name.
What did you expect? Can I ask you, did you, before he arrived, did you know?
Yeah,
were you feeling it? Did he had a couple of...
One thing, of course, I was sure of, that it was somebody. There was a huge shot.
Do you think it was
obviously
Oprah,
yeah, somebody, you know, something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Or some, I don't know, Angelina Jolie, I don't know, something like that. But no, and so when I disembarked, of course I recognized him. Yeah, it was him, and we had a good time, and we had well, it's nice. He reminded me, actually, there's this beautiful palace, and he didn't hear what I said, so I said, what is this facade? Then I didn't hear, because I was talking to his wife, and said, what is this facade? I said, no, excuse me, what did you ask? And she said, okay, what are these windows? And I said, Bill, you want me to talk to you about windows? Oh, come on. Yeah. And that was the first time actually he really laughed.
He came a couple of times to Dubrovnik.
Then later on, yes, but obviously from that time on, I don't think it was like a secret anymore. I don't know, I'm not familiar with that.
So, but this is okay. Bill Gates, one can understand.
Or Prince Charles. That
but
happened
Prince Charles is much more interesting. Because I mean, let's be honest, everybody. I mean, not anybody can be that rich, but not anybody can be a English prince. That's a very specific thing with all the mannerism and something. How does that happen? So you have you're like a host. You're representing the whole Dubrovnik in Croatia, and the prince is coming. How come?
It was very sensitive because of the political situation in Europe. They were still fresh from the war here, and it was a very, very important visit politically. I don't know to which politics it contributed or was aimed to, but it was very, very important to have such a personality that would make actually the world news, blah, blah. So again, must be the checkup, the
MI6, MI5 check, double check, triple check too, yes.
And then, we had good time, and on 2 occasions actually, within a short period of time. But that first time it happened, just that it started raining really sort of out of the blue, and his protocol was faster than ours, my protocol, because there's a mess of people who could hardly walk.
The prince.
So they were faster to give him an umbrella, and he opened the umbrella and just held it for me all the way down to the main street, and well. So I happened
to be that old joke. It's like that old joke. I don't know who that guy is, but if the prince is holding his umbrella, he must be a big shot, right?
True. Well, they called me. I mean, some friends that were at the American embassy, then I remember, they called me the next morning. It was all around the televisions everywhere. And so this guy, the then military attaché, I remember, it was a very funny guy, called me to say, listen, I'm calling you because my wife asked, who is that guy with Mišo?
But the reason why I'm asking you this, because it's interesting, because it is now about, as well as tourism and everybody, but to open up after something like being closed in and now having a prince or Bill Gates coming in, the whole city must be very proud. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're yearning for money, but they're yearning for attention again. And Dubrovnik right now is... Well, there's too much attention.
Too strong, it's too much. Yeah.
So you bring all these people and they come here and the whole world slowly opens up and you see Dubrovnik showing up in movies and everything. Right, a little contribution, but goes a long way, right? And now it's crowded, right? Yes. Now it's overcrowded. Yes. So do people in Dubrovnik still think that maybe you should tone it down, or is there still...
Okay, well, there have been very many serious discussions where tourism in Dubrovnik has arrived to and what it can be. And obviously some little steps have been undertaken already, but you cannot, in this tourist trade, I'm not a specialist at all, but I sort of read and follow a lot. You cannot, just stop some engagements, some contracts that are, serious.
I agree, yeah.
And blah blah. So they are really the authorities and the professionals have been discussing this, like Venice and Barcelona. It's like this similar situation in all the three cities. I say similar, people say the same. No, it's not the same because each city is different. To really try to see what can be done.
Because you can also destroy the city. Right?
Well, they cannot destroy the city.
Not easily, but is it also a problem?
No, it cannot be destroyed. No, you cannot destroy it. It will last for 5 million years. In the physical sense of the word, it's just stone, and nothing else. And that's the only really city of stone in the world, properly. So it cannot be destroyed. But of course, the consequences are there in many other aspects, like pollution by these huge ships, pollution by the people. I don't know.
I mean, the water,
the sewage system,
the sea around Dubrovnik was always incredibly clean and blue.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they will not pollute it that radically because we have no industry or something, or no pollutants actually of the sea all around the area, or on the side of the Adriatic in general. So you need like a huge polluter, like a factory of something.
That you have tankers, tankers coming in, but it's mostly a tourist
Fortunately, the
ship.
sea resolves many questions all by itself, except for plastic. But God, I don't want to think what is the bottom.
Japanese came out with a bacteria that eats plastic.
Plastics,
so we'll
right?
See. We'll see.
Maybe that's the savior of the world. Because if we start killing the fish by plastic, where do we arrive to? And then that's in the sea, and then with this GMO that would kill the bees, and then we just stop to exist ourselves because there's no food for the man. So there are many. We're in times of many dangers, but hopefully there is wisdom enough to stop, prevent, moderate, limit, direct things. So serious. It's a serious. Problem. Yeah, it's a problem. In a way, it's a sweet problem because there are so many people.
Because it's success,
and the Game of Thrones and blah blah.
Well, that was
and Robin Hood recently.
That's what I wanted to ask you at the end. Is this idea that apparently things are going more and more? It's not just tourism now.
It's film industry.
Yes, film industry and TV industry is catching up, and now Dubrovnik every year there's another blockbuster, something made that. So for the end of this podcast, Kate, what would you like to see in the next couple of decades? Because I think making movies and making TV series, it's more in tune with this whole Dubrovnik tradition of bringing culture than just cruiser ships for somebody to take photo, but doesn't really understand what's happening around.
I think I have a very brief answer. I think I would like to see Kirov Ballet in the main street.
Okay, so just good old classical arts happening.
Dubrovnik, just when you have a look at it, do we need the Game of Thrones as our propaganda means? We cannot.
Don't you think it's a good?
In a way, but it depends on what kind of tourists
what comes from
you
that.
want to
what
have.
We take from that.
If you have.
As I understand, the series itself was a good thing.
Absolutely. Oh my God! I have, for God's sake, and I'm happy that some parts and good parts were filmed in Dubrovnik, of course. But the marketing about the Game of Thrones actually overcast a shadow on Dubrovnik as a cultural destination, as a historical monument. So, because there are very many people that come to Dubrovnik as a site of, was that King's Landing? The Game of Thrones.
To see it's a real city.
And and I don't know how much actually of Dubrovnik they see. That's what I'm sorry about.
No, but
that's why I say Kiro Ballet.
To bring them in and then educate them than to never get them in.
I don't think those agents do. I really don't know what they do. So sorry, but if somebody has come there appositely to see where this was filmed, where this was taken, to see the throne from the series, and so on. How much is he interested in like art in Baroque, in Renaissance? I don't know.
It depends on the story, but maybe the Game of Thrones is it's a super successful series. But maybe, for example, the movie about Robin Hood that was shot, the new movie.
It's coming out soon, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was shot in Dubrovnik. Maybe that's a little bit more interesting because King Arthur. Not King Arthur, King Richard. Lionheart.
Yeah.
He came to Dubrovnik.
Yes, reportedly, yeah.
Reportedly, the storm brought to the shores of Dubrovnik.
Sank his ships.
Sank his ships. He built the church allegedly. The legend goes.
Yeah, okay, let's have a fairy tale.
But the legend says that Robin of Locksley was coming back as well from the Crusades with Richard.
Yes.
That means that possibly
Robin Hood was there. Yeah, absolutely. Potentially,
so if somebody was coming to Dubrovnik because of the movie of Robin Hood, there is a genuine historical story to connect to that. I mean, it's probably not real, but I mean.
Perfect, but you know what my personal, I don't know, puzzle question is how much of. I mean, we used to have a very, very strong audience that would come to Dubrovnik supposedly for concerts, for things, you know, like that. I'm afraid that kind of clients, of tourists, has declined quite drastically, and that it has been overtaken by the Game of Thrones clients. No offense, please, don't take me wrong.
I understand, yeah.
But as a one who carries all this in his blood.
Director of Summer Festival.
I would like for my city and my country, of course, always to have this, not mask, but the true face of art that it has to show, because we have things to show to the world, and at the same time with that to prove that we are indeed a part of the world.
I would like to finish on this because I think it's a really. So we've been to all this stuff, and I really would like for people to, anybody coming to Dubrovnik, to listen to this because I think it's very interesting. And if we cannot get help from the people living in Croatia, maybe we can get help from people outside of Croatia.
Yes.
We'd also like to see Dubrovnik in its. I mean, we didn't talk about history of Dubrovnik. Maybe we can do that next time because it's a long history. But
very interesting.
But I think the more and more people will be coming to Dubrovnik, and the more they know about Dubrovnik, and the more they're willing to invest in Dubrovnik will also be better off.
Absolutely. God, as said earlier on, it is an open city. It has been for centuries.
The asylum as well, right? It was historical
asylum. People, oh yes, and
for asylum.
Sometimes literally.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So this podcast is not. Yeah, it's also named the asylum.
Just by a joke, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a old Dubrovnik.
So welcome to my asylum. Yeah.
Welcome to my asylum.
Welcome to my asylum.
Thank you very much once more.
You're most welcome, Borna.
Thank everybody for watching and listening. Please comment and share and like and please promote.
Likes only, please.
Please only likes. And follow what Mišo is doing as well. He's also helping us a little bit with Total Croatia news.
Yes.
And so we're colleagues right now. I'm so happy about that. So. Everybody, hope you support this, and hope to see you in Dubrovnik.